Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Meetinghouse of Provincetown, where we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and where we support each other on our spiritual search for truth and meaning. My name is Rev Kate Wilkinson, and I am so glad that you are here this morning. Welcome to those of you in the room, and welcome also to those of you joining us online via our live stream. I'd like to begin with a call to worship written by my colleague, Reverend Hannah Roberts-Villeneuve. Why do we gather here? What's the point? After all, the earth will turn and the darkness will ebb and flow, and our days will continue on without this place, without this time. So why do we gather? Couldn't we all be sleeping or making pancakes? Instead, we have gathered again to make this place holy with our presence and our love, to make this place home with our hard work and our hearts. It is an ancient thing to build a home for the holy, to create a temple in which we might find the divine. But our temple lives beyond these walls, beyond this foundation, in the lives we live and the love that we give. Come gather with us this morning and rededicate the temple of your heart to justice, mercy, hope, and love. Come, let us worship together. Before we continue with our worship service, I do have a few announcements to share. Thank you so much to everyone who came to our annual meeting last week. I am so grateful for how engaged you are and how dedicated you are to this community. It just touched my heart to see so many of you on that Zoom screen. Now, I know this is a very busy weekend for many of you. Mary, how are the Outer Cape Chorale concerts going? It's glorious. Congratulations to all of you who are in that group. There's one more opportunity to see and hear Mary and so many of our members as they lift their voices with this wonderful chorus today at 3 o'clock at the Nauset Middle School. Yeah. And next week, Brenda's daughter, Brianna, is performing with the Gloria Dei Choir. They are presenting the Christmas portion of Handel's Messiah at the Church of the Transfiguration in Orleans, so be sure to check that out as well. So many amazing concerts happening this holiday season. And we have a few extra special things happening here this month as well. Our winter solstice service will be on Thursday, December 21st at 5 o'clock. That will be downstairs in Acker Bosworth Hall. We will spend some time in the darkness together and also welcome the return of the light by lighting candles and saying our wishes for the coming year. Rose Clancy and Max Cohen will be joining us on fiddle and guitar. And afterwards, we'll have some refreshments together to celebrate the longest night. We also hope that you can join us for our Christmas Eve candlelight service at 7 o'clock on December 24th. This is always a beautiful service, and the whole town turns out for it. The service will also be live streamed, so those of you from afar can join us. We cannot guarantee the quality of the lighting. Because Christmas Eve is on a Sunday this year, we will actually be having 2 services that day in the morning. Just to make it a little more fun and informal, I am inviting you to come in your pajamas or bathrobes. It is a pajama party service. Alternatively, you can come in your silliest or best holiday sweater. And please bring some holiday treats for coffee hour that day. Aren't you all feeling so toasty and warm in here thanks to our new insulation? It's amazing. We have just one more stage of this project to complete, which is insulating under the floor in Acker Bosworth Hall. So the office will be closed several days this week while that work is being completed. So please call ahead before coming in. And finally, if you are here in person today, we hope that you will stick around for a little while after the service ends for coffee and conversation downstairs in Acker Bosworth Hall. Now let's take a moment to affirm our community's covenant. You can find this on the little purple laminated cards in your pews, or you can just listen line by line as I say it. I will say a line and you can repeat it after me. Love is the spirit of this meeting house.
Love is the spirit of this meeting house.
This is our great covenant.
This is our great covenant.
To dwell together in peace.
To dwell together in peace.
To seek the truth in love.
To seek the truth in love.
And to help one another. Please join me now in singing our opening hymn, number 55, Dark of Winter. That's number 55 in the gray hymnals, Dark of Winter. Please rise as you are able. Be seated. It is universal, this need to create meaningful light in the darkness. And so throughout the month of December, we will be observing rituals of light. And this morning we light our chalice, our Advent wreath, and our menorah, joining together the many strands of tradition that create our faith community. We begin by lighting our chalice. And as we light our chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you who are watching from home to light a candle wherever you are. In that way we can feel connected even while we are apart. I invite Jen and Heather to light our chalice this morning.
Thank you, Heather. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us.
And we will now turn to our Advent wreath. Last week, we lit our first Advent candle for hope, and this week we relight that candle. The second candle of the Advent wreath represents peace. In this time of expectancy and celebration, let us hold on to the ideal of peace. Even though wars rage around the world and sometimes in our hearts, we recognize that peace arrives gently and to an open heart. We light the candle of peace. And tonight marks the fourth night of Hanukkah. So this morning we invite Maria and Augie to light the candles of our menorah and recite the blessings.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Hanukkah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Sher asa nisim lavosenu bayamim ha'hem lazman hazeh.
Amen.
Do you want the Hanukkah song? Yes. We'll do the Hanukkah song if anyone knows it. Come here, you. Hanukkah, Hanukkah, come light the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance the hora. Gather round the table, we'll give you a treat. Sivivon to play with, Lavivon to eat. And while we are playing, the candles are burning bright. One for each night they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. And while we are playing, the candles are burning low. One for each night they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. And then the last one is, dreidel, 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 I made it out of clay. And when it's dry and ready, dreidel I shall play. Happy Hanukkah, everybody.
Thank you so much, and look how much light we create with all of our dearly held traditions this time of year. Let us sing now together Spirit of Life, hymn number 123. The words to this song are also printed on the purple laminated cards in your pews, and we'll sing it first in English and then in Spanish. During Spirit of Life, or at any time during the service, you are welcome to light a silent candle at the table to the right of the pulpit, where there is a journal to record your thoughts and prayers.
This morning's reading is called Resilience, Rest, and Resistance by Reverend Suzanne Intrillagator. We can think about examples of resilience from all the world's religions. There's the Israelites, who survived hundreds of years of slavery and then wandered in the desert for 40 years, led by Moses and Aaron and Miriam. There's the example of Job, who survived so many devastating losses without losing faith. And yet, our culture perpetuates such misunderstandings about the nature of resilience. Mistakenly, we tend to think of it as a personal characteristic, something the individual demonstrates by long hours of hard work and all-out competition. But that's not what the research says. The kind of resilience that actually sustains us through tragedy and hardship is the resilience we build by using tools like rest, connection, and compassion. And what about grace? If resilience is a set of skills you can build and use, grace is beyond that. It's outside of that. Grace is what happens when your tank of resilience runs out, and you're about to fall apart, and a little miracle comes by just out of the blue. In Christian theology, grace is equated with God's love, which comes to help you and to save you, unbidden and unearned. Our Universalist forebearers were among the first Christians to declare that grace and God's love was for everyone, not just the lucky elite, but for every last soul. That's part of our spiritual inheritance. And of course, our faith has a strong humanist strain too. Humanists would have a different take on grace. They might use grace to describe everyday miracles like a flash of beauty at just the right minute, like when you spy a bright cardinal hopping across the snow, or when a stranger arrives just in the nick of time to help you with the groceries or a flat tire. So here's my advice: 5 tools you can use to build real resistance in yourself and in your families. To help you remember them more easily, they spell out grace. G may be the hardest one. It stands for gratitude. There's all this research now that shows just how transformative gratitude can be. But finding it when you're suffering a loss can be so difficult. So we have to practice. Every morning and every evening, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. It changes you. R, the second tool, R stands for rest. Resilience is actually built on getting enough rest. Insomnia gets in the way of that. We are not getting enough sleep to rest our brains. And we're also not taking enough days off or enough breaks during the day. Time away from computers, cell phones, time spent interacting with real people and with nature. We need recovery time every day in order to build resilience. A is for acceptance. Yes, the Buddhists were right. Life is full of suffering, and accepting that can be the first step toward compassion for yourself and for others. You can let go of all the blame and just allow that life involves suffering. It does. Accept it. C is for connection. We are not lone wolves. We build resilience with one another, with family and friends and congregations. We take turns caring for one another and accepting others caring for us. We need each other. Connection makes us stronger. E, the last tool, stands for elasticity, giving yourself the space to bounce back. Early in our grieving, we feel we will never really feel joy again, but time proves us wrong. So that's grace. 5 tools for building resilience, for survival in a world that feels crazy sometimes, as people have been doing from the very beginning.
Thank you. Now is the time in our service where we take a collection for the ongoing support of this meeting house and our shared ministry. As we enjoy a musical reflection by our choir, we welcome your donations here in the sanctuary or online via PayPal or Venmo. You can find that information on our website, uumh.org, and there are QR codes on the cards in your pews as well. At this time, I invite Augie and 2 other volunteer ushers to come forward for the collection. On and off-site, your offerings will now be gratefully received.
So you'll see the hymn number 222 on our placard, and I invite anyone who's here today and knows the Jewish hymn, I will call it, Lead Yom Alel, which is at 222. Now I have to give some directions. You'll notice in the first couple of lines, there is a repeat sign in the second line. So we're going to go and we're going to sing it in Hebrew first. And then we're going to repeat that Hebrew line. And then we're going to go through the verse part of the song. Then we go back to that A part. I have somebody who's smart here. They put letters. So we're going to sing, I'm going to go back to the beginning. A, and A again, the B portion of the song, and then back to A. We're going to sing it a second time in English. You just want to sing Hebrew, don't you? If you can, please join us. And then we'll go through the English part, A, B, and then back to A in English. Is anybody confused?
Yes.
Okay, follow us. Thank you. And happy Hanukkah, everyone, on this 4th night. Should there be a miracle in our lives. Thank you, Brenda. Mi Yamalel, O Israel, O Tan, Mi Imne, Hen Bekodor Yakum, Agdoro El Ha. Repeat. Mi Yamalel, Guro Israel, O Tan, Mi Imne, Hen Bekodor Yakum, Agdoro El Ha. Next. Shema. Israel. Yiddish one more time. Mi yamalel Torah Israel otayim hem mekodora kum hagibor goel. English. Who can retell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero or sage comes to our aid. The next part. At this time of year in days of yore, Maccabees the temple did restore. And today our people, as we dream, will arise, unite, and be redeemed. Back to the beginning, English. Who can retell the things that befell us? Who can count them? In every age a hero or sage came to our aid. Thank you for indulging me. Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you.
Thank you. In an article called Hanukkah, It's Greek to Them, Rabbi Lavery Israeli explains an interesting fact about the Festival of Lights. Today, Hanukkah is perhaps the best known Jewish holiday throughout the world, he says. But despite its popularity, Hanukkah is the holiday with the least textual basis. The story of Hanukkah does not appear in the Hebrew Bible. The Hanukkah tale in the Talmud, the early rabbinic teachings, only tells part of the story. Only the miracle of the oil is mentioned. The story of the military victory, he says, is entirely left out. To complete our knowledge of Hanukkah, we need to consult the book of Maccabees, contained in the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha, books added later to the original canon of the Bible, written in Greek, not in Hebrew. Stories, of course, evolve over time. And even with the same telling, the meaning can change as our own lives and contexts change. Hanukkah commemorates a military victory, a battle won despite astonishing odds. But later rabbis, uncomfortable with the military-themed celebrations, focused the holiday of Hanukkah on the miracle unmentioned in the book of Maccabees, that in the temple, after it was cleaned out, when they relit the temple lamp, a jar of oil that should have lasted only 1 day, lasted 8. And so, taking the lead from that ancient group of rabbis, this is the story that we retell each year during this season of darkness. Not the story of a military victory, but a story of lighting our lamp when the oil is running low, and the miracle of its sustaining light. Right now, with war raging in the Middle East, we join with those early rabbis in not feeling moved to celebrate a story centering long years of war and fighting. But like them, we see the meaning in celebrating the miracle of the oil and in wishing for our own miracles of peace. And with anti-Semitism on the rise, it feels right and good to light the candles of the menorah, to reach into the stories and rituals of the Jewish faith, out of which many faith traditions, including our own, grew. Real dedication requires repeated rededication my colleague Kelly Mason writes, of ourselves and our institutions to our highest ideals and religious values. Cleansing the polluted sanctuary, rekindling the extinguished lights must be accomplished anew in every age, she says. Our own is no exception. Each year, we tell the story of the oil in the temple lasting 8 nights. We tell the story of a baby being born in a manger. We tell the story of the sun returning after the longest night. Our winter holidays all revolve around stories of hope. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that throughout history, we've recognized that we need these stories to make it through the year. And so we never tire of them. But our task as seekers is not just to retell ancient stories, but to look for new ones. But how can we tell stories of hope now, you ask, when the world is such a mess? Who are we, you might think, to tell stories of hope in a world full of such despair? We are not ancient scribes. We are not the authors of the Bible. We are not learned rabbis. We do not control the sun. And yet, as I see it, we are it. We are the bearers of hope in our small, fragile vessels. And if we do not collect these stories, their small light will not be gathered with the other small lights to shine in the face of darkness. And the stories of greed and violence and despair will prevail. We see those stories every night on the news, and our brains fixate on them more easily, and we tend to pass them on as more important than the good news that we learn of. But stories that get told and passed on help to shape the narrative of the human spirit. When we tell stories, we are teaching each other who we are. And so it's important to tell stories of goodness also. So this morning, let us tell stories of hope, small stories, human stories, our stories. Let's not worry about their place in the canon. Let's not worry if they can really be considered a miracle. Let's just share what we know of hope and resiliency and joy. Here's one. One day on the weather report, Rebecca Jordan heard about an early freeze warning. It was early November, and her beloved gardens were still producing pepper plants and 7-foot-tall tomato vines nestling clusters of green tomatoes. Most of the perennials, she knew, would simply fall asleep like bears in hibernation, returning the following spring. But what about her 25 potted annuals? Before nightfall, Rebecca and her husband gathered the plants, covering them with sheets on the back porch. They looked like ghosts. The next morning, she checked the damage. Most of the perennials survived, but the beautiful trellising sweet potato vines lay shriveled, yellow and brown, along with her colorful coleus plants. So sad. The annuals would die. Just when the winter doldrums were descending, she walked into the living room and found her husband had started a blazing fire, comforting and warm. Not only that, he'd collected a sack full of green tomatoes. That night, they enjoyed a deep South staple, fried green tomatoes, for the first time. Most of us dislike winter, Rebecca writes. Endless days of unchanging, frigid weather, threatening to shrivel our faith and discourage our spirits. Like those dying plants, we may feel useless, void of color. But every season has a purpose. And late fall is for fried green tomatoes. And winter offers that warm, blazing fire, beckoning us to sit a while. Kayla Lasky's story of hope comes from her daughter Eliza's bat mitzvah. The big family celebration was to happen on a boat. They planned the food and flowers and music, but something was missing. The mitzvah, the good deed. It was not enough to just have a speech and a birthday party. That month, there was a request in the Lasky's synagogue to pray for a local soldier who was being deployed to Iraq. And so the idea was born to have all of the kids at the bat mitzvah make Hanukkah cards to send to Jewish soldiers overseas. Nothing earth-shattering, just a way to inject some meaning into the festivities. The date arrived and the boat departed. It was a picture-perfect September day until Eliza's carefully prepared speech blew overboard, but she ad-libbed admirably. The Hanukkah cards were written and colored and decorated. Everyone had a good time. And the next day, the cards were mailed out with heartfelt wishes and love to their Jewish brothers and sisters. The end. But not really the end. 6 months later, when the bat mitzvah was a fond, distant memory, there was a knock on the Lasky's door in the middle of the day. When Mrs. Lasky opened the door, a shy young man greeted her. "I'm Lieutenant Steinberg," he said, "and your daughter sent me a Hanukkah card when I was in Iraq." Stunned, she invited him in. Apparently, the few dozen cards made at the bat mitzvah had been thrown in with the hundreds and thousands of cards sent to celebrate Christmas that year. The chaplain showed up one day at the army base with an enormous sack filled to the brim with cards and letters. As he passed out handfuls of cards to the grateful troops, Lieutenant Steinberg was just hanging back, feeling left out and lonely. Suddenly, amidst the celebratory crowd, the company captain noticed him. "Steinberg, why are you so quiet? How come you're not opening any cards?" "Captain, I'm Jewish, remember?" "Come on, Steinberg, don't be a spoil sport. Take a card." The young man tried to shrink himself into invisibility. But the captain wasn't having it. "Let's go, Steinberg. These people were nice enough to write to us. Now take a card." By now, the captain had everyone's attention, and the young soldier was getting uncomfortable in the spotlight. So he reached deep into the sack and pulled out a card. The return address was from his own hometown. Hands shaking, he tore it open and found a beautiful handmade Hanukkah card signed by Eliza, the bat mitzvah girl herself. Steinberg was dumbfounded by the providence of it all. A huge smile broke out across his face as he proudly showed the card to the captain and the rest of the platoon. Everyone understood the small miracle they had just witnessed. Another story. This one's from Thursday's New York Times. Smith & Wesson is being sued by a group of nuns. A coalition of 4 Catholic nun congregations said in a lawsuit filed on Tuesday that the gunmaker Smith & Wesson has put shareholders at risk in the way it makes, markets, and sells its AR-15 style rifles. The nuns, who are Smith & Wesson shareholders, argue that the gunmaker is exposing itself to liability by intentionally violating laws in its production and sale of the rifles, which have been used in several high-profile mass shootings. The lawsuit, filed in the 8th Judicial Court in Clark County, Nevada, states that Smith & Wesson has enjoyed with abandon the record-breaking profits from its sale of AR-15 rifles, seemingly unfazed by the exponential rise in gun deaths and mass shootings carried out with its product in the United States. We call on Smith & Wesson to return to the practices of its first 153 years of existence, when it held itself as a successful beacon of responsible gun ownership and did not manufacture, market, or sell military-grade mass-killing assault weapons, the nuns said in a statement. The nuns are from Adrian Dominican Sisters in Adrian, Michigan, the Sisters of Bon Secours in Marriottsville, Maryland, the Sisters of St. Francis of Philadelphia in Aston, Pennsylvania, and the Sisters of the Holy Names of Jesus and Mary in Marielhurst, Oregon. Jeffrey Norton, the lead lawyer for the Nuns Coalition, said on Thursday that his clients collectively own more than 1,000 shares of Smith & Wesson and are doing their part to save lives through shareholder activism. I don't know why, but I just love thinking about these nuns suing Smith & Wesson. One last story. This one from right here in Provincetown. In the week leading up to the World AIDS Day, a poster started circulating around town about a rosary rally to be held outside the post office cafe and cabaret on Commercial Street during the Christmas drag show. This great offense to Christ's birth and the Holy Family cries out for reparation, prayer, and protest, said the poster, which was created by the group America Needs Fatima, a conservative Catholic group that opposes abortion, same-sex marriage, and socialism, and also Christmas drag shows. Especially offended that this protest was to take place on World AIDS Day. A cross-section of Provincetown residents got together a few nights before the event to plan a counteraction. Now, at first, no one could agree on what to do. Should we ignore them? Should we yell at them? Should we hold a silent vigil? Should we let the police take care of it? Ignoring hateful protesters is often the best way to de-escalate a situation. But then we learned that some of the drag performers were scared. They weren't sure if they could go on. So ignoring the threat was not the best way to be good allies. Silent vigils can be powerful, but we were already taking part in a candlelight vigil earlier in the day for World AIDS Day, and we didn't want to diminish that. And there was something about feeling silenced and erased that made people want to make noise. Not shouting, not screaming, but how about singing? How about showing up as our full selves in drag or in holiday finery or anything that shows that we celebrate who we are in Provincetown? And the police were on board. They offered to shut down the street for the AIDS vigil and the drag show response. And so the idea for a queer joy block party was born. As it turns out, the Rosary Brigade didn't show up, but our community did. That night, more than 100 people gathered on Commercial Street in front of the post office cafe. Gay and straight, cis and trans, children and adults. It was drizzling, but it didn't dampen spirits as lyrics to Christmas songs were passed around and shared on phones via a QR code felt very old. We sang Jingle Bells and Feliz Navidad and Dreidel, Dreidel, Dreidel. Some people were in drag. Wyatt, a young man in this community with Down syndrome, was dressed as a panda and sang loudly from the middle of the circle, sometimes conducting the crowd with his paws. I wore these glasses. On a night when hate was expected to show up, joy showed up instead. One of the drag performers listened to the singing from inside with tears streaming down their face. There was a sense of relief knowing they weren't coming, they wrote, but there isn't a word for what I felt in that moment. Safe, loved, protected. I don't know what it was, but it was all the things, all the true things, the real things. This is what community looks like. Thank you, Provincetown. Thank you, everyone. It's not that the temple was not destroyed. It's that in that wreckage, the oil lamp was relit. It's not that the frost does not come, bringing with it the death of all that is unharvested. It's that coming in from the cold, there is a warm fire. It's not that we are not heartbroken at the 630 mass shootings that have occurred this year. It's that we can use our heartbreak to work for change. It's not that people don't hate us. It's that when our community is threatened, we join together to protect and celebrate each other. It's not that we are not entering a season of darkness. It's that in the face of darkness, every religious tradition finds reasons to create more light. Let us join our energies not with the despair of the long night, but with the hope of the returning light. May it be so. Amen. And blessed be. Won't you please join me in singing our closing hymn, number 118, This Little Light of Mine. That's number 118, This Little Light of Mine. Please rise as you are able. One more time, this little light.
It has become our practice to pose a question based on the theme of the service each week. It can be a topic of sharing at coffee hour today or with friends during the week. If you'd like to delve deeper into this question, we invite you to join us at our Zoom coffee hour on Tuesday evening at 5 p.m. Please contact the office if you need that link. Our question this week is, what is something hopeful that you've witnessed or read about this week? What is something hopeful that you've witnessed or read about this week?
Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for joining us this morning online. I'll end with these closing words. And what is the point? After all, the earth will turn and the darkness will ebb and flow, and our days will continue on without this place, without this time. So why do we gather? It is an ancient thing to build a home for the holy. Today and in the days to come, may we rededicate the temple of our hearts to justice, mercy, love, and hope. Go in peace.